When we think of technology, we often don't think of gardening or horticulture or an arborist. And yet, looking at how we view technology in education, I think it's very applicable to look at it through almost like a natural consequence, something that we plant these ideas, these concepts in the ground, and they have to take 20, 30, 40 years to manifest and produce something of fruit, something of value. And so when we start looking at how do we actually engage in technology and education, the reality is a lot of times we change education and we adopt new ideas without actually understanding what will manifest from those ideas that we've changed. And this is why over the course of my educational career, I've adopted kind of a moderate approach to technology. It's a cautionary optimistic. I use technology. Technology can be used very effectively to make our lives easier, to build some communicative elements in our life that were never possible before the last 20 years or so. But what we also see is technology allows a new convenience that, when leaned upon too heavily, has actually caused a host of unintended consequences for our entire society. And so as educational leaders, I think we have to go about technology of using it effectively, of actually kind of guiding this of what is the effective use of technology, knowing that whatever we implement won't be fully realized until we potentially are long gone. So what I want to do is kind of walk you through some of the intended fruits, some of the hope we have in technology, and then walk you through some of my personal goals and kind of how I approach it. I'm going to look at some complications support along the way, and then ultimately give you my takeaway all this. All right. My imagery here is a tree. So we see the tree up top, we have the fruit kind of emerging, and we have the roots at the bottom. We're going to start with the standards, and a lot of people think the standards are the roots. I don't. I actually think the standards are the fruit. These are the things that we hope to produce, and some idealistic future when everything works out perfectly, this is what we hope to achieve in our schools. And just a quick kind of guide over what they are. I mean, we have the first fruit is going to be the number one thing, which is equity and citizen advocacy. And when I thought about these things, I always think about Lord of the Rings with Bilbo Baggins. He starts off, he doesn't go anywhere, he doesn't want to do anything, he's a homebody, he doesn't want to engage in the world around him. And as he engages, he basically has to handle the tasks that are handed to him. And over the course of, the Hobbit's journey, he becomes all of these things. Barrel rider, mysterious thing, thief, but friend, loyal friend, and ultimately ends up saving us from a very unlikely spot. And so as I was looking at these ideas, I found it intriguing to look at the ideas in a form of what does it require us to become. So the first goal or first standard that we get for educational leaders is equity and citizen advocate. And in this one, very simpler, it calls us to be a gap narrower, an ethics consultant, and a safety officer. I think this one is the most problematic for me. I think it's a little too pie in the sky. When we start talking about equity, we can't even define that. A lot of people think equity means the same. Ethics, same thing. As a amateur philosopher, we use the term ethics a lot, and most of us can't define it, and we definitely don't agree on what it means. And so this standard, I think, is the most problematic for us. And so I kind of got some back and forth on it, if you will. The second one, the visionary planner, I think is more applicable to what is reasonably within our wheelhouse to obtain. To be a visionary planner, I think it forces us to be a synthesizer, to bring ideas together and find the unifying element of those ideas, to be a forward mover, to stop allowing ourselves to get stuck in the rut. And this is problematic. When we get into traditional societies, we often praise where we come from, and there's a certain type of nostalgia that kind of plays into this area that we're from, and there's a comfort in it, there's a familiarity to it. And in order to reach the standard, in order to bear good fruit, we have to realize that we are designed as human beings to move, to progress, to evolve in one way or the other. And so many of us just kind of want to fight that instead of saying, where can we move and move forward with an intent, move forward with the determination almost, instead of being wrapped in the wave of forward movement, actually actually being the one steering the ship. I have their unifier. I also have innovator, to innovate. Innovate is not to necessarily create, but to take what we know, take the pieces of it, put it all together, and then create something new from it. So we have a visionary planner, which I think is more feasible than our wheelhouse, but it's still the fruit. It's the outcome of a lifelong journey here. The next one we have, as I think is the most important standard that we actually have, is the empowering leader. Any leader is only going to be as effective as the people around you that you empower. You have to have other people join you in the quest and help fight the battles that you're inevitably going to have to fight. So in this one, I've added the words motivator, risk taker, hardest worker. Yes, I do mean hardest worker. In my experience in education, too many people got into educational leadership to get out of the classroom. So their motivation wasn't motivated to become the hardest worker on campus. They were motivated to get out of some of what they perceived the hardest work on campus. And that's largely why we have this kind of second tier educational leadership we have today, and why it's so problematic trying to find good educational leaders, to be completely honest with you. When in reality, the educational leader has to be the hardest worker on campus. Full stop. You have to set the example on this is what this looks like. So in the realm of technology, we have to be able to use technology effectively and show our teachers how to use technology effectively, and be patient in their own kind of journeys along the way. When we get into system designer, connected learner, these kind of are I think necessary byproducts of the other ones. To an extent, I think they're mildly redundant, but it is what it is. A system designer is an engineer. If you're going to get your campus to the certain technological end that you've envisioned, you're going to have to detail a roadmap to get there, some type of engineered response to get you there. Project manager, same thing. Policy maker, yes, you're going to have to implement rules. You're going to have to design rules. You're going to have to figure out how rules are designed and how they're implemented. You're also going to know when to throw out bad rules when something's not working. Every engineer, I think the biggest thing with a system designer that we really struggle with, specifically in government policy, is throwing out bad ideas. When you get into any engineer anywhere, once you realize that something's not working, a good engineer throws it out and tries to find a different cog, a different mechanism, a different system, a different scientific technology, a different simple tool to use that may be more effective. And policy is messy, and once you have adopted federal policy, the bureaucracy almost becomes an stubborn advocate of just insensible, poorly designed policy. And so when we look at the system designer, I think it's important for us to be a policymaker, to actually talk about policy and talk about both the strengths and weaknesses of policy, and to continue trying to develop better policy. Troubleshooter, try not getting irritated and frustrated with technology, to be sensible about it. It's going to mess up. It's going to fail you. And so you've got to kind of keep that. The last one is connected learner. For this one, it's like a Renaissance person. Too many teachers kind of get in the rut. They're stuck in like, I know email, or my favorite, I don't do technology. That's right up there with I don't do math, or I don't do English, or I'm not an English teacher, or there's so many ways that we as teachers devalue education. And I think in order to meet this last standard, a connected learner, it means that we stop devaluing education, whatever education that is, whether it be education in social studies, English, technological, that we model this kind of Renaissance idea of a continuous learner. And so as we kind of go into these, the roots of all of this are going to stem from practices that we adopt and we incore in our very being. In other words, what do we do on a day-to-day basis that either allows for this fruit to emerge or does not allow for the fruits to emerge? If you've got a good roots, the fruit will take care of itself. If you don't have good roots, you're never going to produce good fruits. And so I think these standards is only going to be met if we actually foster a good root system. And so the first thing that we must do as educational leaders is we must not allow convenience and comfort to dictate our progress. Simply put, too often we as educational leaders get into education and we're like, I'm just going to kind of ride out to retirement. I'm going to spend the next 5 years kind of doing the easiest thing I can. And so we basically give in to the system of convenience and comfort. And I've got there on the left our favorite convenience store. One of my favorite snacks growing up were Cheetos, which oddly oddly I dipped in bean dip, but nonetheless it is. And we got Chef Boyardee, which is like, oh, easy, family friendly, freezer meals. And our society just kind of gave in. In a lot of ways, we gave up. We just kind of gave our ability to create and innovate and design to the cheapest alternative. And as educational leaders, I think we do that all the time. We go with the bottom line, the cheapest product. We go with the biggest promises of the data munchers that come onto our campus and say, hey, if you adopt our product, we'll magically change your test scores in the next 3 months. And we should really be cautious of that. Those programs turn over a lot. It's not odd to see an educational program adopted and then discarded the very next year after it's been kind of beta tested locally. And so as educational administration, as leaders, I think it's important for us to stop taking the bait, stop taking convenience, stop adding comfort, stop doing whatever's easy, and actually get in the kitchen. Actually start figuring out how this food is made, what are we actually looking at, and really spending the time to understand and develop some of this on our own. I've got there on the right the healthy food section, the section that nobody really likes to look at because, complete side note here, but it bothers me when I'm walking in the produce section and you can buy a full red, green, orange bell pepper there, but then right next to it, they have it already cut up for you. And so even in the fresh produce section, we have still marketed convenience in so many ways, and it's so much more expensive just to get the stuff that's cut up. And I'm like, just cut up. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Nonetheless, as we look at this, as educational leaders, we've got to stop taking the easy way out or the perceived easy way out. The second thing we must do is we must accept the value of constructive conflict. We shun conflict. This is one of the things I found to be overwhelmingly true in the modern society. We avoid conflict like the plague. We don't want to see it. We don't know how to handle it. We're so worried about being called names. We're so worried about being played favorites. We envision the worst possible scenario, and so we don't practice effective conflict. We don't actually sit down and say, how can we turn conflict into some type of positive resolution? And so I think one of the things we have to do as educational leaders is to accept the value of conflict. Stop avoiding it. Actually learn how to engage teachers in tough conversation and dynamic conversations and conversations that are going to lead to some hurt feelings. We want to live in a society where let's not offend anybody. That's just not the case. We are going to come from these ideas from a lot of different points of view, and some people's they're not so secure in their point of view. And when you start touching on somebody's insecurity, they're going to get offended. And you're going to have to learn how to navigate that offense so you can work them through the offense into some productive outcome. And so it's imperative that we as educational leaders actually develop a sense of what conflict is and how conflict can be used for a good in our schools and not just a bad. The last thing is we must remain committed to our staffs and our students. At the end of the day, we are a servant of our local population. Too often, our local schools get sold out because educational leaders are on the way up. They are looking for the next step. They are doing their 2 years of a sense of AP so they can get to the 3 years of principal, so they can get to a district job, so they can wallow in the glory of the ease of a district job where you may go in and I don't know. But I have heard the story way too many times over the course. And so what happens is those people on the career track, they don't take personal ownership of their school. And this is something that as an educational leader, as a teacher, if you're going to be an effective leader in your school, you have to take personal ownership of that school. You have to pick up the trash off the floor. You have to engage. You have to help with technology. You have to stop avoiding that's just tech's job. I don't know what to do. You actually have to get your hands dirty and say, no, this is my campus and it's going to work. It's going to be the best campus people are going to work on. I want people to want to come to my campus, right? And that personal ownership, that personal stake allows us a different perspective. Too often that personal stake is sold out for a district initiative, for a federal initiative that many times we don't understand, by the way. I have been privy to so many district and federal initiatives that once I did the research, the local administration wasn't even applying the initiative the way it was supposed to be applied. So essentially, they got bad advice, they got bad data and information, they adopted a poor understanding of it, and now they're hamstringing teachers with this new regulation, whether it be in technology or anywhere else, and they're doing it without really understanding the policy themselves. As educational leaders, yes, we're under the federal guidance. We have to follow federal law. Yes, we're under state guidance. We have to follow state law. But it's our responsibility to understand what that law is and how to synthesize that law with the best outcome for our campus. And so this is one that I think we must do if we're going to produce that type. In the realm of technology, same thing. Sometimes this means not buying the golden goose or unicorn of technology. Some schools are overstimulated with technology. Some schools need to back off of technology, to be completely honest with you. All right, so when we look at technology, because sometimes backing off allows you to appreciate it, allows you to understand it, right? Sometimes if you're inundated with something so much, you lose the value of it. You lose how to actually use it for some kind of creative purposes. And so you have to be attuned to your school and your school's needs, right? So what are the potential things? If you're going to build good roots, you have to feed those roots, all right? So how do you feed this? What's going in? What's watering your roots, right? So we all as educational leaders need a moldable staff. Yes, I have been an advocate of long time of encourage, support, and find ways to build in and speak life into your good teachers, into your good staff, not just teacher staff, right? If you have a media attendant that is awesome, find a way to praise them. Find a way to get cash in their pocket. Find a way to elevate them on campus. If you have a janitor, right, that is emulating what needs to be done, right, find a way. Your staff is your bread and butter. Find good staff and empower them. And the opposite side of that coin is identify the bad actors on campus and mitigate their bad actions. Sometimes it's hard to fire a teacher. I get that. But you can work and engage in that conflict to mitigate bad action or potentially to mentor and make better that bad actor. Right? But that is something we have to kind of engage in because that is something you need. The more bad actors you have on your campus, the more unlikely you will be as a leader to be effective. Right? Supportive parents, that's not an easy thing, right? It's not easy. I don't have a lot of advice on it. It's not easy. Within the parenting world, same thing. You've got to encourage good actors. You have to mitigate bad actors. Parents come to good and bad. We often assume that every parent has a right to defend their kid to the utmost extent. I disagree. The public school is a public school. It's a collective institution. If a parent is there wanting special treatment for their kid at the expense of the rest of the students on campus, that parent needs to be shown the door, right? That's simple, all right? It's not that thing, but we're like, oh yeah, but we get paid based on average daily attendance. And so if we kick a kid out, then we lose that money, right? Once again, I go back to convenience and comfort. Take the financial hit. Protect what you have going good on campus. Spousal encouragement, whether it's a spouse, a partner, somebody in your life, you need somebody speaking life into you as an educational leader, somebody you can bounce ideas off. In my mentorship and my consulting history, I've been surprised at how many principals simply didn't have somebody that they can just talk to. They had pressure from the top, so they really didn't feel like they could be honest with the district personnel that had all kinds of tests and whatnot that they needed, but then they couldn't be honest with their teachers in AP because the teachers in AP always had this kind of like suck up, brown-nosing mentality. And so principals were often isolated, and I found very, very strong sentiment of isolation within our principals, that they just felt alone, that there was nobody they could talk to. And so one thing I did in my consulting firm was I simply sat and listened to principals. I allowed them to bounce ideas off of me. I gave them proper feedback. I recommended readings and books that they could go to. And I was surprised when I got into consulting that so many principals found themselves so alone. And so if we're going to be successful educational leaders, we have to engage and we have to get people in our lives that can speak encouragement. For me personally, it's my wife. My wife, Ashley, we've been almost married for 20 years. She is the person that I bounce everything off of. In fact, she will watch this video before y'all watch this video. And small wins. Last thing is small wins. Take the small wins. Everybody needs a win. Take it when you get it. If you got one teacher that showed up on time that hadn't showed up on time all week, small win. If you don't count your small wins, right, you will not survive, right? We count every single negative, big, small, or indifferent. The negatives pile up. If you're going to be successful long term, we have to have those small wins. Count them when they matter. What's going to get in our way? Really quickly, stubborn staff members. Like I said, bad actors, find them, isolate them, mentor them into correction, or get them off campus, one of the two. District pressure, yes, district can pressure, and sometimes you have to stand up and have a backbone against district personnel. Remember what I said about convenience. A lot of district personnel are there because they simply want it off of school campus. They turn around and they become the very bureaucratic oppressors that they whined about for the years on campus, and we all have had experience of that. So sometimes if you're going to lead your campus, you have to lead your campus by protecting from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Selfish parents, like I said, good actors and bad actors. Some parents simply want you to bend over backwards for their kid, and some parents need to be told to hit the road. The other thing is short-sightedness. The biggest thing that will disrupt your vision is those that cannot see it. Those that want it to manifest in a week, 2 weeks, 3 months. It's important for us to lay down a vision and then stick with that vision long term. Let them know this is going to be a 2 to 3 year process. If you want to change a school, you're looking at a 3 to 5 year project, right? 3 to 5. Right? And that's just at the beginning steps, right? If you really want to change a school, then commit. Find a school that you can commit yourself to and commit to that school. Give it your all. Make it yours. Put your imprint and your legacy on it, right? I think it's one of the things we have to kind of begin orienting ourselves as education leaders if we're going to change the tide. And so, what do I take away from this? What is the takeaway for me? Micah 4:4 says, "But they shall sit under a man every vine of his under his fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid." I think this is kind of tongue-in-cheek. The idea is that eventually we are going to reap what we sow. We often gripe about education today, and I often laugh at this because teachers are like, "Oh, education today," and I always like, we did it. We did it. Right? Literally, we have the education system that we sowed in the 70s and 80s. We did it, right? Educators did it. And right now, we're in the process of doing something we don't understand. So with these technology standards, we're already sowing what will reap in the next 20, 30 years. And so we need to be cognizant of that. But if we're diligent in our task, if we sow good things, if we're cautioned, if we see the standards as a highlight and goal, but also are disciplined in our approach to those standards, if we modify and engage the future with humility and a certain level of respect for the power it possesses, then we craft the system that will eventually be the one in place. And if we do it right, there's nothing to fear. I coach parents a lot. I've written 3 books on parenting. There they are. And I tell parents all the time, we're so worried about our kids growing up becoming a thing. Do parenting right. If you do what you can, build on, then you just got to trust it. So the little things I've learned along this journey is to value feedback, whether it be a presentation, whether it be stand-up speaking, whether it's you're long-winded and you talk too fast, which is the number one thing that I get in my presentations. We need feedback, and we need effective feedback. We need timely feedback. We need constructive feedback. And so not only do I need it, but I actually seek to give it. I always tell my students, I will give you an honest answer, regardless of what that is and whether you may not like it. I told my teachers that I mentored for years, I'm going to give you an honest answer. They all volunteered to be part of my consulting progress. I did not force anybody to be a volunteer, but I told them up front, if you're volunteering, you're getting my honest insight. And I think that is important. No job is too small. A lot of times I get kind of annoyed with some of the petty work. I'm like, I don't want to do this as a waste of time. And there's some stuff in academics with graduate work in my political science class and sometimes in education courses, and I'm like, this is a waste of time. But I have found that if you engage, if you try to reach the intent of the assignment. Stop just trying to provide what the professor wants, but actually engage in the intent of the assignment. I think it could be very valuable. So there's no job too small. Leading is hard. I've been a leader right now. I'm a high school teacher. Like I said, it's a long, complicated story, but there's no easy way to be a leader, and too often we kind of get in leadership haphazardly. We kind of stumble into it, and whether you're stumbling into it or going into it courageously, I'm telling you right now, if you're going to be an effective education leader, you have to develop some courage. This is not an easy thing to do if you're going to be successful. Otherwise, it will beat you down. The last thing is time is valuable. Respect your time, respect your staff's time, respect your children's time, and respect the time trade-off that we give to technology. There are some times where technology can make our lives so much easier in construction or in regards to time, but when when we adopt bad programs and bad ideas, then that very same technology that has so much promise becomes the detriment, actually becomes so much draining of our time and our effort. And I've realized that not all technology is good, and we have to be very, very careful as leaders in what technology we accept and whatnot. Right? So all in all, like I said, a lot to unpack here. I apologize for the length, but hope you found something in this presentation of value. Give me your best thoughts. Let me know in comments what you think. Otherwise, I will look forward to talking to you all again.